G'day, Flosstube. Anna here, aka Moranalyst, back with another Stitchy update. It is June 14th. It is winter in the tropics. I have a sweater on. Of course, I've got a tank top underneath it. I've actually been debating all morning whether or not I should turn the space heater on because I've been a bit chilly, but you know, the other alternative is I could just put socks on too because I'm currently sitting here barefoot. I had to go buy more socks because the current office I'm working in, I actually have to have covered in shoes, which means I have to wear socks, which means I had to go buy socks. That's how rarely they get used. Anyway, to put things in perspective for non-tropical people, the temperature, according to the computer anyway, is currently reading 24 degrees Celsius, 76 degrees Fahrenheit, and I am cold enough to want the space heater and the sweater. Yeah. Doesn't really compute to people from normal climates. So we have coffee, we have stitching. I don't know, I meant to do this update last weekend, but life. And I figured if I didn't do it now, life. So let's have at it. Actually, I might start, if you just give me a second to pull it up. I'll start with, because we're now halfway through June and I didn't film earlier. Should have a Stitch from Stash update. I think I missed a couple of months in there altogether. Sorry, guys. But I'm going to have to put my glasses on to read this. So, for May, I started with an abysmal starting balance of negative $163. I did have some finishes. I had the page finish on that Aura of Autumn, which was a whopping $4 or $5 something. Plus I had the horrific Halloween finish. So between the two, I claimed $25 in credit. But then, if you remember, there was a sale on fabric clearance on the 28 count cash out at Spotlight, plus miscellaneous other things. A couple of stash unloads, some more threads. So all up, I spent $163. I spent as much as my balance was in the negative. Didn't realize that. Which leaves me for June starting at negative $271. And guess what? I was off stitching with the buds the other day, last Saturday. I'm telling you, it's dangerous to have friends because you get to chatting, you get to talking. Oh, you can find that chart, so and so. So I will tell you what that is when it comes, but needless to say, June's not going to look any better. And so I've just kind of written off this whole Stitch from Stash for this term. Maybe we'll give it another go starting in July. Because, yeah, like I knew I would struggle to keep an even balance. But I guess I was hoping to have a bit more respectable finish. Not quite so far in the red. It is what it is. So, what have I been working on? As per always, got to put some time into the chatelaine. Let's see where we're at with this one. Oops, guess what? I left my needle in the fabric, right where it'll rust, as per usual. So, you see that? I've been working Hold on, guys. We'll get there eventually. I've been working in this corner. So I think when you last saw it, I had started these trees, but there wasn't a whole lot done. I finished off the 2 trees on this side, and I made a fair bit of progress on the darker side. I'm going to at least take that needle and move it well out of the way where if it rusts, it will be, you know, on the back of the framing job. So this one is getting pretty close, but of course I got the taller one to go yet. Excuse me. So I haven't done anything for magical stitches lately. I think the last thing I did was, there was one where we had to do a color for each one of the competitors in the Tri-Wizard tournament, and I think Harry was red. Somebody was red. And so that was that. But that was several weeks ago at this point. To be honest, I couldn't even tell you what this week's homework is. I've really kind of fallen off the Magical Stitches bandwagon, and there's no reason. Like, it's a great concept. The only reason is that when things get crazy, the last thing I want to do is count. I just want to sit in bed and stitch when I need a chill out time, and counting is not chill out time. So that's really the only reason I've been so slack. So maybe I should have a look. Now that today's my day off, I can afford to, you know, think a bit harder. Although I was supposed to do knitting. Yeah, life's tough when you have to pick one project or goal over another. So yeah, that tree's nearly finished. Got that whole one, and then we're back into another stone lantern and the mossy areas that lead into the koi ponds. And that will be, so let's see if I pull out the whole thing. They're not quite halfway around yet. I reckon I got to get to those stone lanterns before you'll be halfway. But onto my third set of koi fish areas. So I'm really pleased with how that's coming along, and I may or may not have bought another chatelaine pattern, but I'm not admitting to anything. Nope, not gonna do it. Yeah, guilty as charged. So I also did a couple of days, only about 3 days effort on the Fantasy Triptych. Teresa Wentzler, confetti and blended threads galore. Very typical Teresa Wentzler in that regard. I'm working, I finished the 2 side panels. I'm working in the castle panel. Miss Oh So Crafty is also doing this one. I think she started in the castle panel. Whereas I basically, with all the Wentzlers, I tend to try and, I start in the middle because that's what I was traditionally taught. And I race to the outside frame and then do that. And then I fill in from the frame. So when I got to the fill-in point, I basically decided, oh, I'd do the smaller ones first and focus on those, and then do the center one. Put down my card, hold on. My board. So I had a bit of a play with this one because I bought the Q-Snap to play with the Aura of Autumn. I thought, well, let's have a go with this whole parking thing with this Wentzler. So I started, it was very close to the top of these turrets in the castle. And so I started up there, but really I was close enough to the top that parking was kind of a waste of time. I just ended up snipping off threads, and it's like, this is not doing anything helpful whatsoever. So then I came down and was working in this vegetation, because of course you have quite a long column before you hit color changes in here. And that worked a lot better. So I did almost 2 blocks of 10 wide, almost all the way up to where it turns to that rock. And that was 2.5 days effort to get that done. Yeah, it's still extremely slow going, but we get there. And I guess what I liked was I found I was having less of this little 2 threads here, or 2 stitches, 3 stitches to fill in business. That kind of drives me nuts. And plus it was nice to see such clear progress. I find with a Wensler you can spend hours and hours and hours stitching and feel like, oh, I can't see anything more than I did at the start. Whereas this, when your column was growing, you know, you could see clearly columns that high, now the column's that high. And so visually it was a bit more rewarding and, you know, easier to keep going because you could see you were making progress. So give you a quick look. It's been, I think, a while since I've had this one out. So for anybody who hasn't seen them before, that's the Maiden's panel. She's all backstitched. Okay, I'm struggling to get things straight on this board. She's all backstitched. You know, I got through. I was working from the bottom up on this one. I got all the way up to the horse's head before I realized that horse was not a horse. It was a unicorn. Had no idea. It's like the foot in the Fairy Moon one that Kyle found. I had no idea it was a unicorn. And then the Knight's panel. And he is also all backstitched and everything, so he's ready to go. The backstitching on these take just as long as the stitching in some ways. There's a lot of colors of backstitching. And as much as I try and go through and, okay, I'm going to do all of this green, and I'm going to do all of the pink, inevitably you miss bits and you're back and forth between the colors at the end. So there is that. I did a little bit more on the Aura of Autumn, which goes this way. Oh, you know, I didn't say any of the fabric stuff, guys. The Chatelaine is a 28 count cashel that I dyed myself. The Wensler is on some sort of even weave, that, I don't know, cream even weave. No idea what the count is, no idea. Yeah, just no idea. This is another even weave. I believe this is 32 count, so it's done 2/2. Don't have a picture of this panel finished to show you. I'll try and insert one. Although with any luck, I won't actually do any editing because that speeds up the whole Flosstube upload substantially. So last time you would have saw it, I don't know, it was at the page break, about there maybe. I think I've got 1 or 2 full columns to the top done in the next page. Again, I'm kind of going back and forth. Clearly I've got parked threads up here. Is that my needle too? No, that's just thread. That one, that dark one looked like needle. So I've got a fair few more parked than I did before. Just playing around, trying to figure out what works. Yeah, I'm finding this one hard going as much as I like the picture. At the moment, all I've just got is masses of orange and browns and nothing that I can visually look at and say, oh, look, there he is. And so, yeah, I'm hoping, yeah, I don't even know. I haven't looked at it. The panel's not that wide. So I'm hoping somewhere in here I'll start to be able to see the park bench. That's really the major feature of this panel. But then again, that park bench is mostly just a black silhouette. So yeah, I'm kind of wondering whether this was a great choice because it may be a hard slog as far as stitching it goes. but I'm not in a hurry. I did the maths at some point, decided if I did a page finish a month, it'd take me about 3 years. Well, I think I'm already a month or two behind, so let's not plan on it being a 3-year job. That's all right. These things don't go off. Trust me, that Teresa Wentzler sat in a cupboard, and I'm pretty sure I started that in the US before I ever came to Oz, so it's made the trip at least 3 or 4 times. Back and forth, you know, to Oz and back to the States. Yeah. And it's still there. I'll finish it one day. I actually need to go through the bucket of old stuff and see what else there is. I think there's a couple that are pretty close to finishing. I could, if I got them out, I could claim stitch from stash credit for doing the last few bits of stitches, and maybe I'll save that for next term so that I don't end up quite so abysmal. The other one I worked on, let me get the picture of what it's going to look like. Hold on. Is Queen Sorry. So I think I showed you that I started her in the last video. I hope so. I love that. Colors on it are just phenomenal. And she's what I've been stitching on the last couple of days. So I still got my needle here, but it's on the needle minder. So this is again a 28 count cashel, hand dyed by me. This, if we go back a couple of videos, there's the video where I actually dyed this particular fabric. The extra fabric has been sent off to Dublin. So yeah, if anything ever gets stitched on that, I'd love to see it. Send me a picture or something. So you can see we've got, you know, feathers. We've got a lot of hair. The last several days I've just been doing acres and acres of hair. But this is where her face will go in, and then that's the start of the top of her. It's not really a dress because it's kind of 2 pieces. Top of her top. So yeah, I love this. I've started putting in a bit of metallic, which doesn't really show, but there's little bits of a light gold in the feathers that is really striking. There's a bit of purple through her hair, which I don't find quite as striking. But reserving judgments till we get a bit farther along. And I think that's the only 3 cross stitch things I've been working on in the last while. Haven't done any knitting in the last several weeks, certainly not since I filmed last. However, I vaguely remember burying the knitting I had intended to show you at the bottom of the pile of stuff I already had showed you last time, so I thought I'd bring it out and still show you, even though I haven't done anything lately. So as a reminder, and for anybody who's new, this is the first time I've ever tried to knit anything. This is totally a learning exercise, so have pity on those of us who don't know what we're doing. I have finished now 2 repeats of the last section, and I think there's 4 altogether. I'm just trying to figure out, yeah, this way is the right way. So I think when you actually wear it, so this middle bit is sort of it's a shawl. You know, the center of the back of your neck sort of thing, and then a big triangle from there. Some of my stitches are really quite messy, and then you can see, I have a hard time seeing it in the camera, but you can definitely see where in the last section I had some serious issues Here's a good example. Those ridges should all line up and, you know, be just one long ridge down the triangle. Well, clearly I've buggered up the count somewhere because my ridges are all broken. So, I mean, like I said, this is totally a learning and a practice thing. And I can tell at times I'm getting better. It's now been several weeks since I've had any kind of practice. So we'll see how far backwards I've gone. But yeah, I'm relatively pleased with how that's turning out. I'm sure I'll be buggered if I can figure out which way's which on this. I think you're seeing the right side. But then half the time the other side looks neater. Yeah. Just in case. That's the other side. Will somebody please tell me what I'm doing? Anyway. So I figure, I think I'm down to about 80 rows of stitching left on this. I just grabbed, the pattern said something about worsted weight yarn, and I just grabbed something that said worsted on the pack. I know it's cruddy acrylic. It's like a whopping $2 for a ball, so it's not fancy at all. But again, this was an experiment sort of thing. But I have no idea how that will translate into size, you know, what the pattern intended versus what I actually get. Fortunately, I think a shawl is a bit of a easier size to fudge. If I want to make it bigger, I can just add more repeats to that last section or less. But I had been aiming for about 10 rows every weekend, and I haven't done that for at least 3 or 4 weekends. So I'm a bit behind on schedule on that one. I told myself today I was going to start that, and this weekend we were going to do 10 rows again. But I keep looking at Queen's Larry and the chatelaine. Maybe I should do some rows on that first. Anyway, I think that's about it for me. Can't think of anything exciting else to tell you. I'm sure I will remember something as soon as I hit stop. Have a good couple of weeks. I will see you when I see you. Have fun stitching. Talk to you later. Bye.